I met my husband the day before he went blind in a car accident. Stay until the end. I'm going to tell every detail of our story and what our lives look like today. He can't see me, and he hasn't been able to since that terrible day that changed our lives forever. But I know he sees me in a way that goes far beyond vision. My name is Caroline. I'm 33 years old, and this is the story of how I met my husband the day before he lost his sight completely, and how we built a life that defies every expectation the world had for us. It was on a regular bus, on a Tuesday in March that started like any other. I was 23, majoring in psychology at the State University. I met my husband the day before he went blind in a car accident. Stay until the end. I'm going to tell every detail of our story and what our lives look like today. He can't see me, and he hasn't been able to since that terrible day that changed our lives forever. But I know he sees me in a way that goes far beyond vision. My name is Caroline, I'm 33 years old, and this is the story of how I met my husband the day before he lost his sight completely, and how we built a life that defies every expectation the world had for us. It was on a regular bus, on a Tuesday in March that started like any other. I was 23, majoring in psychology at the State University, and I was running late for a psychopathology class. I rushed on to the 402 bus, my heart pounding, and the only empty seat was next to a guy with brown hair and green eyes who was reading a mechanical engineering textbook. I sat down without thinking, still catching my breath, when he looked at me and smiled. It was a simple smile, but it made me stop rummaging through my bag for my headphones. "Sorry," he said, adjusting his backpack to give me more room. "It's pretty tight in here." "It's fine," I replied. And then I saw the university's name stamped on the cover of his notebook. "Do you go to State?" His eyes lit up. "I do. Mechanical engineering, sophomore year. How about you?" "Psychology, sophomore year as well." I smiled back, and we started talking. I found out his name was Raphael, that he was 24, lived with 2 friends in an apartment near campus, loved classic rock, and played soccer on Saturdays. He found out I lived with my mom and my younger sister, that I worked part-time at a child psychology clinic, that I was passionate about literature, and that I dreamed of opening my own practice one day. We talked the entire ride to the university, 40 minutes that felt like 5. When the bus reached our stop, we both stood up at the same time and laughed at the timing. We got off together, and there, in front of the main campus gate, under the bright March sun, Raphael looked at me with an intensity that made me forget I was late. "Carol," he said, using the nickname I had mentioned casually during our chat. "I know this might seem really fast, but would you like to go out with me tomorrow? Get some coffee, talk some more?" My heart skipped a beat. There was something about him, a sincerity in those green eyes, a genuine kindness I rarely found. "I'd love to," I answered without hesitation. "Great," he smiled broadly. "How about we meet at 7 p.m. at that coffee shop on Acacia Avenue, the one with the tables on the sidewalk?" "Perfect, I'll be there." We exchanged phone numbers, said goodbye, and each headed to our respective classes. All that day, I couldn't stop thinking about him. In class, I caught myself smiling alone, replaying our conversation, the ease with which we spoke, as if we had known each other for years. My best friend, Julia, noticed immediately. "What happened to you?" she asked during the break, her eyes shining with curiosity. "You have that look of someone who just met someone special." I told her everything, and Julia got just as excited as I was. "Carol, this is like a movie romance. You meet on the bus, set up a date for the next day. You have to tell me everything later." That night, lying in bed, I kept staring at my phone, waiting for a text from him. And it came around 10 o'clock. "Hi, Carol. Still thinking about our conversation today. Can't wait for tomorrow. Good night." I replied immediately, and we texted until almost midnight. There was a connection between us that went beyond the physical, something I had never experienced before. When I finally fell asleep, I dreamt of green eyes and sincere smiles. The next day, I woke up with an excitement I hadn't felt in a long time. I spent the whole day thinking about the date, carefully choosing what to wear. A light blue blouse and jeans, nothing too fancy, but something that made me feel beautiful. My mom noticed my mood. "Do you have a date?" she asked with a smile. "I do, Mom. I met a guy yesterday on the bus. He seems really nice." "Be careful, honey, but have fun," she said, kissing my forehead. My mother had always been a wise woman who raised me with love and freedom after my father left us when I was 10. At 6:30 in the evening, I was already ready, nervous, checking my phone every 5 minutes. At 6:45, I called an Uber and headed to the coffee shop. I arrived 5 minutes before 7, chose a small table on the sidewalk with a good view of the street, and waited. 7 o'clock came, 7:05, 7:10. I started getting restless, constantly checking my phone. No message from Raphael. 7:15, 7:20. My chest started to tighten. Had he forgotten? Was it just a joke? At 7:30, with my eyes starting to sting with disappointment and embarrassment, I called him. The call went straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same thing. I sent a text. "Hi, Raf. I'm at the coffee shop. Is everything okay?" Nothing. The delivered status didn't even appear, indicating his phone was off or out of signal. At 8 o'clock, heartbroken and feeling like an idiot for believing so quickly, I paid for the coffee I had ordered so I wouldn't just be sitting there without consuming anything, and went back home. The Uber was silent, and I stared out the window with teary eyes, wondering how I had been so wrong about someone. He had seemed so genuine, so interested. How could it all have been a lie? When I got home around 8:20, my mother was in the living room, and by the look on her face, I knew something was wrong. But she wasn't worried about me. "Carol, are you okay?" she asked, standing up from the sofa. "No, Mom, he didn't show up. I think I got stood up." My voice came out choked. My mother came over and hugged me, but there was a tension in her I didn't understand. "Carol, honey, sit here with me. I need you to see something." Confused and still drowning in my own disappointment, I sat next to her on the couch. My mother picked up the remote and turned the TV to the local news channel. And then I saw it. My blood froze. My heart stopped. On the screen, Raphael's photo. Those green eyes that had looked at me with such interest just the day before. The caption underneath, "Student suffers critical car accident. Victim in critical condition." The reporter's voice echoed in the room, but I could barely process the words. Rafael Costa Santos, 24, a mechanical engineering student at State University, suffered a serious car accident this afternoon around 6 o'clock on Main Avenue. According to witnesses, the vehicle driven by Santos lost control while swerving to avoid a dog, colliding violently with a tree. The windshield shattered completely, and glass shards struck the young man's face and eyes. Raphael was treated by paramedics and rushed to the General Hospital, where he underwent emergency surgery. His condition is considered critical, and according to doctors, he may have suffered permanent damage to his vision. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. I just sat there, staring at that face on the screen, finally understanding why he hadn't shown up, why his phone was off, why he hadn't answered my messages. He hadn't stood me up. He was fighting for his life. "Carol, do you know him?" my mother asked, softly, holding my hand. I met him yesterday, Mom, on the bus. We were supposed to go out today. I thought he had forgotten me." The tears finally fell, but now they weren't tears of disappointment. They were tears of fear, of despair, of guilt for thinking badly of him while he was suffering. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed awake, refreshing news sites, trying to find any information about his condition. At 3 in the morning, a new report came out. Young man in accident may have permanently lost vision. Doctors report that damage caused by glass shards was extensive and irreversible. My heart shattered. A 24-year-old guy, full of life, of dreams, who had smiled at me so openly just 2 days before, might now never see again. And the last thing he had seen in his life, if the doctors were right, had been me. I had been the last image recorded in his eyes before darkness took them forever. In the following days, I became obsessed with hearing news of him. I called the hospital, but they wouldn't give me information because I wasn't family. I tried to find friends of his at the university. I asked around the engineering department. Finally, a week after the accident, I got the contact of one of his friends, Peter, who lived with him. "Are you Caroline?" Peter asked when he answered the phone. "Raphael talked about you. Before the accident, he was super excited about your date." My heart clenched. "How is he?" There was a long pause. "He's not good, Carol. The doctors confirmed it. He lost his vision completely in both eyes. The glass shards did a lot of damage. He went through several surgeries, but there's nothing more they can do. Raphael is destroyed. He barely speaks, barely eats. He's in a deep depression." "Can I visit him?" I asked without thinking. "I don't know if that's a good idea right now. He doesn't want to see anyone. He's angry at everything, at God, at fate, at himself. Even his family can't really get through to him." But I couldn't accept that. I couldn't just go on with my life knowing he was suffering. There was something pulling me to him, a connection that made no logical sense, but that I felt in my gut. So I did something bold. I asked Peter for his address. 2 days later, when Raphael had already been discharged and was recovering at his parents' house, I showed up at the door. My hand was shaking when I rang the doorbell. His mother answered, a woman in her 50s with tired eyes, red from crying. "Hello, my name is Caroline. I met Raphael a few days before the accident. I would like to visit him, if possible." She looked at me with a mixture of surprise and caution. "You're the girl from the bus. He mentioned you. Come in, dear." The house was cozy, full of family photos on the walls. She led me to a room at the end of the hall. She knocked gently on the door. "Raphael's son, you have a visitor." "I already said I don't want to see anyone." His voice came from inside, harsh, full of pain. "It's Caroline," his mother said gently. There was a long silence. Then, quietly, "Let her in." His mother opened the door and motioned for me to enter. The room had the curtains drawn, plunged into a gloom that seemed to reflect his state of mind. And there, sitting on the bed, was Raphael. He was wearing thick, dark glasses, his head was bandaged, and there were visible dressings on his forehead and cheeks. He was thinner, pale, with the slumped posture of someone carrying a crushing weight. "Hi, Raphael," I said softly, my voice almost a whisper. He turned his head toward my voice, but his eyes, hidden behind the dark glasses, couldn't see me. "Carol, you came." "Of course I came. I was worried about you." He gave a bitter laugh. "Worried about a guy you knew for 40 minutes on a bus? You don't need to pity me, Carol. I know how this works. You came here out of obligation, out of guilt maybe, but you don't have to stay. I'm not that guy you met anymore. That guy died in the accident." His words cut me, but I understood the pain behind them. I approached and sat in the chair next to his bed. "I didn't come here out of pity, Raphael. I came because I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since that day on the bus. I came because that meeting, that conversation, meant something to me. And just because you can't see me doesn't mean you've changed or that I want to leave." "You don't understand," he said, his voice breaking. "I was driving to our date, Carol. I was so excited, so happy. I had bought flowers. I was rehearsing what I was going to say to you. And then that dog appeared out of nowhere. I swerved, and in a second, it was all over. The last thing I saw was you, your face on that bus, your smile. And now I'll never see anything again." Tears streamed down my face. I reached out and, hesitantly, touched his hand. He shuddered at the contact, but didn't pull away. "I am so sorry, Raphael. I am so sorry for everything that happened. But you are still here. You are still the same person who talked to me on that bus, who made me laugh, who made me feel a connection I had never felt before." "How can you say that?" he asked, his voice full of anguish. "I'm a burden now. I can't finish my degree, I can't drive, I can't do anything alone. My life ended at 24. "Your life didn't end," I said firmly, squeezing his hand. "It changed, yes, drastically, but it didn't end. And I would like to be here to help you navigate this new reality, if you let me." He stayed silent for a long moment. Then, slowly, his fingers intertwined with mine. "Why would you do that? You barely know me." Because sometimes life puts us in front of the right people at the right time. And I believe we met on that bus for a reason. Maybe this is the reason. Maybe it's so you don't face this alone. And that's how it began. In the days that followed, I went back and back again and again. Sometimes Raphael was receptive. We talked about everything, about life, about his fears, about his dreams that now seemed impossible. Other times, he was plunged into a sadness so deep he could barely speak, and I just stayed there, holding his hand, letting him know he wasn't alone. I started reading to him, books he liked, articles about engineering, the news. I helped him move around the house, described everything around him in detail so he could create mental images. I met his family, his parents, Mark and Sylvia, and his younger sister, Beatrice. They welcomed me with a gratitude that moved me because they saw in me a light in the darkness that had taken over their son. Months passed. Raphael started physical therapy, learning Braille, slowly adapting to his new reality. And I was there every step of the way. The connection we had felt on that bus only deepened. I found myself falling in love with him in ways I didn't even know were possible. Not for what he was, but for who he was. His strength, his vulnerability, his intelligence, his humor that slowly returned on the good days. And he was falling in love with me too. I could tell by the way he smiled when he heard my voice, how his fingers sought mine, how he opened his heart to me in ways he didn't for anyone else. A year after the accident, on a warm March night, we were sitting in his parents' backyard. I was describing the stars to him, trying to paint the beauty of the night sky with words. "Carol," he said suddenly, turning toward me, "I need to tell you something." "What is it?" "I love you. I know it sounds crazy, that our story is completely atypical, but I love you. You are the reason I didn't give up when everything seemed meaningless. You showed me that there is still beauty in the world, even if I can't see it with my eyes. I see it through you." My heart exploded. "I love you too, Raphael. I love you in a way I can't even explain." He reached out and I took his hand. "Will you be my girlfriend, officially?" "Yes," I said without hesitation. 1,000 times yes. In the following years, we faced challenges most couples never face. Raphael went back to the university, adapted his coursework, had professors and classmates who helped him. He graduated in engineering against all odds. He got a job at a company that valued his intelligence and skills, adapting his work environment to his needs. I graduated in psychology and opened my office, specializing in working with people with disabilities and trauma. 3 years after the accident, Raphael asked me to marry him. It was at a simple restaurant, surrounded by friends and family. He had memorized every word, every movement. When he knelt and opened the box with the ring, chosen with my mother's help, I cried tears of pure happiness. "Caroline," he said, his voice steady and full of emotion, "you were the last beautiful thing my eyes saw, and if I had to choose one last image to carry for the rest of my life, it would be you. You saved me when I was drowning in darkness. You showed me that life is worth living, even when everything seems lost. Will you marry me?" "Yes," I said through tears. "Yes, yes, yes." We got married 6 months later, in a beautiful ceremony in his parents' garden. I described every detail to Raphael, the flowers, the guests, the decorations, but what he wanted to know most was how I looked. "Do you look beautiful?" he asked before we walked in. "I look my best," I said. "Then you look stunning," he replied, making me laugh and cry at the same time. Our honeymoon was at the beach. I described the sunset to him, the color of the sea, the shape of the waves. And he made me understand that seeing isn't just about eyes. It's about feeling, about experiencing, about being present. Today, 10 years after that meeting on the bus that changed our lives forever, here we are. We have 2 beautiful children, Michael, 7, and Sophia, 4. Raphael is an incredible father. He plays with the kids, tells stories, teaches them about the world in unique ways. He has never seen their faces, but he knows them intimately through touch, through their voices, through love. Our life isn't perfect. There are daily challenges, there are moments of frustration, of sadness, There are days when Raphael still wonders what his life would be like if the accident had never happened. But there is also a profound gratitude, an awareness that, despite everything, we found something precious, a love that transcends what the eyes can see. Sometimes, when we are alone at night, Raphael runs his fingers over my face, mapping every contour, every line. I still see you, you know, not with my eyes, but with everything else. And you are even more beautiful than I remember. And I believe him, because the love we built wasn't based just on that one time our eyes met on a bus. It was built on every day since then, on every challenge overcome, on every moment of shared vulnerability, on every tear and every laugh. Raphael saw me only once in his life, but in that one time, he saw enough to want to spend the rest of his life getting to know more of me. And I, who can see him every day, learned that true vision goes far beyond the eyes. It's about seeing someone's soul, about recognizing when you find the person you want to build a life with, regardless of the obstacles. 10 years later, as I look at our children playing in the backyard, feeling Raphael's hand intertwined with mine, I know that bus wasn't just transportation. It was destiny, putting us exactly where we needed to be, when we needed to be there, to find each other. And if I could go back in time, I wouldn't change a thing, because this is our story. A love story that began with a chance encounter and blossomed despite, or perhaps because of, the tragedy that could have separated us forever. Raphael often says that the last thing he saw was also the most important, and I say that the first time I saw him was just the beginning of a lifetime of truly seeing each other, not just with our eyes, but with our hearts.